and welcome to Fast Girl Speaks. Today is Friday, October 28th. October. You're almost over. This happens every year. October is literally 14 days long, y'all. Actually, maybe 6 days long. I'm not sure. This year, I really tried not to schedule myself to be so busy in October, and it still has flown by. It's been ridiculous. We have had beautiful foliage in Indiana, like the best in a while. We've had like low rain, and then we had some nights where it got really cold, but then it didn't actually get like a hard frost. And we had a little bit of rain, but it wasn't enough to like take all the leaves off. It's just been ridiculous. And we've been having a lot of that, like, you know, that like weird lighting that's like sort of gloomy, like it's like gloomy above, but then like somehow the light bounces a lot around underneath the cloud cover, and it just creates this like very like glowy light that has just been ridiculous. I mean, it's just been insanely beautiful. My dahlias are still blooming. Like I keep thinking like, oh, every time we get like a frost warning, I'm like, oh, this is it. No, they just keep going. Every time I cut a bouquet, I'm like, these are the last ones. I've had like 4 last bouquets. It's been ridiculous. It's been ridiculous. So it's just been gorgeous and beautiful. Strangely enough, I have not gotten a lot of knitting done. It's perfect knitting weather. Like it's gorgeous. And it's like that inspiring temperature where you're just like, oh, you want to knit. But my craft energy has been a bit diluted. Like I've been doing some different things, and I've been experimenting with some things that didn't work out, which of course takes time. But yeah, it's not that I'm not enjoying my knitting. I just am not it's just a little bit more diluted. That's the best way I can think to say about it. Those didn't even make sense in that sentence, but I think you knew what I meant. So I've also been doing some sewing. I'll put that in probably at the end, since that's maybe the most, that's maybe the least interest to the most folks. So I'll do sewing. I do have some knitting, and I have some shenanigans, and I have some shameless self-promotion. I have all of these things, y'all. It's ridiculous. Let's do shameless self-promotion right up front. If you're not interested, that's a-okay. I'll put a timestamp in so you can just jump to the next thing. But it's here, and it will help me feel like I'm ticking something off a list if I do it. Okay, so shop update. November 1st, 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's like New York City time. We're on the regular Eastern time. Small update. There will be a Christmassy kind of update. I'm hoping November 15th, that will be the Christmassy update. I know I tried to get it done for November 1st, but should I try to? I can't get it done in time. It's just going to be November 15th. But I just wanted to do some more fall, because I was just like loving fall so much, and I thought, that's it. I'm not doing any more fall. I'll just start for Christmassy stuff, and I'll do that November 1st. But then there was this bag. There's this fabric that I had to have, and then I accidentally bought it to sew for you. I'll show it to you in just a second. First off, it's with large wedge. So these are all a denim weight with an unbleached cotton lining. This is the large wedge size. And it's just this great little woodland scatter. I mean, do you love this frog? Is he not the best? You've got a great mushroom. You've got some chestnuts in there. You've got acorns. You've got all kinds of mushrooms, some feathers. It's just lovely. And then if you're like, that's nice, but I don't like to leave my house, I've got you covered. Because I also have this lovely, like, dreamy, cozy one. Right? Oh, is that supposed to be like a chamomile, like for chamomile tea? That would be so sweet if that's what it was. But isn't that so cute? And there's even a secret mushroom, because on the book, the binding, there's a little mushroom. The spine. Isn't that sweet? Okay, but here's the fabric that I bought, and then I was like, or that I saw and was like, okay, but I have to have another fall update. Right? Are you kidding me? This is so good. I mean, this warty-ish like fellow right here. Ugh, but isn't it great? Oh, so these are in sweater size, also denim. Also unbleached cotton. But I mean, like, ugh. So that's why I had to do another one. And so then to give you another big gal in there, this is a Wind in the Willows fabric. So there's quotes, the river still chattered on to him. There's little quotes. I'll be all right, my fine fellow, said the otter. So there's otter and ratty and frog and badger. And it's just so cute. I mean, I loved the colors. That's what actually drew it to me first. But then it's Wind in the Willows. And that just feels like such a cozy, like kind of this time of year. Just like we're going to get in our little badger holes and start our library organization. So anyway, so these are all going to be November 1st. Oh, I love all of them. Stinking stanks. And then I'll do Christmas November 15th. Most of them are just winter, but there are a few that have like packages on them or Christmas baubles. So, you know, those will be coming for you. So yeah, right. Shenanigans. I've just had like very chill shenanigans. Like the teen took their SAT. So we've been preparing a lot for that, doing math stuff because, ugh, math. Okay, so I just had to like pop in here to say that I just cut out like a 17-minute tirade about like our educational system in this book that I'm reading called The Knowledge Gap, which is kind of making my brain go gaga with frustration. And like basically I did not plan to talk about it, but then did talk about it for like 20 minutes, and it was just so ridiculous that even I was like, this is too ridiculous, and I cut it out. So if it feels like there's an energy shift, that's why. Ugh. Anyway, let's talk about what else do we do? Oh, we went to a gem and mineral show, which was very fun. It was at a fairground. Excuse me. It was a neighboring county's fairgrounds, and both my husband and the teen are very interested in rocks and geology and like all of that stuff. So we went, and it was very cute. And another thing that I did is made myself a necklace. My husband bought me these big chunky like Wilma Flintstone Amazonite beads, and because I really did like them a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I really like them. They're like smooth, but they're a bunch of angles, like the way they're cut. And so they have like both like they're both rough when you touch them and also smooth. It's very exciting. So then I also purchased some of these like filler beads. These are also Amazonite, and they are matte. And so they make this like delicious sound when you roll them around. It's very enjoyable. So I did that. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of other things, but now I'm just not even sure what they are. I've researched a lot about basement waterproofing techniques. Like a lot. Let me just also discuss that this is a problem. How's there not like one way to waterproof a basement? I get it. Every situation is different. Every house is different. But it's really scary when one person is like, yes, this is the waterproofing method that we use. And if you use the other waterproofing method that Jim over there uses, it might undermine the foundation of your house. And like, what? That's not like choosing a paint that you could be like, ooh, I don't like that color. It's going to cost me some money to cover it up. But like, yeah. Like this paint might make your house fall apart. That's a different story. Like that paint should not maybe be available. And so like, I'm like, I don't know, this guy. And again, like I guess it's a great sales technique. Cause like right after it, I was like, well, gosh, I guess we got to go with that guy because like, I don't want the foundation of our house to be undermined. Like that's very terrible. But then I like sat away from it for a few minutes and I was just like, wait a minute. I don't know if that's right. I don't know. It's terrifying. So then you have to like do 1,000,000 hours again. Could there be some regulatory processes in place that maybe don't allow people to do foundation repairs that might undermine the foundation of your home. I don't know. Man. Anyway, so we're doing a lot of research about that. And then also, randomly, utopian religious sects in 18th century American history. Do you know anything about that? Okay, so I'm so fascinated by like all of the like, the reason this like happened, like the reason I fell down this rabbit hole is twofold actually. I'm going to a show, it's a craft show. I don't know if you call it a craft show. It's kind of swanky for a craft show. In New Harmony, Indiana. And New Harmony is the site of 2 different utopian communities over through time. And I've always been really interested in like the Shakers, and like there's all these like strange like sort of, I don't know, they're like Christian sects, I guess. Maybe maybe we would call them cults now. What do they call that? There's actually a phrase I found during research. New religious movements? Is that what it is? I don't know. Because again, cult is kind of derogatory. Well, it's not kind of derogatory. It's super derogatory. But like these sort of like shorter lived religious communities that, and so the other reason I got kind of fell into it is that I was listening to this thing. Somebody was talking about Johnny Appleseed, and like the reason, I don't know if this is true because I've not been able to research it because I'm having trouble finding all this information. That one of the reasons he did that he planted apple seeds, and again, the problem with planting apple seeds, well, is that apples do not breed true. Like, so if you have a Golden Delicious apple tree, the seeds from it, each apple has 5 seeds, you get 1,000 apples off of it. You could get 5,000 different trees. Okay, because they don't like, so the reason you get Golden Delicious in different trees is that they graft them onto the rootstock. Well, Johnny Appleseed just planted apple seeds, so he wasn't getting like true apples. Now, part of that was like that it was fine because a lot of that preservation was actually being through hard ciders and through vinegars and other ferments, which don't need like a sweet apple, and that the tannins are fine because a lot of these apples that you get will like give that like feels like your mouth's turning inside out effect. And so if you're using them for cider or other things like that, it doesn't matter as much. And part of like some American homesteading acts were that you had to plant like X number of apple trees as part of the improvement to your homestead in order for you to like get the land illegally obtained from the people who originally lived there. But I listened to this thing that said that one of the reasons he did the seeds was that actually he was in this like religious sect, I don't know what else to call it, that was against grafting. Is that a real thing? That was against grafting of fruit stalks and things like that? So I've been trying to like research and like figure this stuff out, but it's like hard. It's like I feel like I'm missing like a terminology to kind of like start with, because it feels like there should be more information and I'm not finding it. So I don't know if I'm just like looking in the wrong place. Maybe I should consult one of the like 100 librarians that I know. It'd probably be a good idea. But anyway, so there's also like around in like central Ohio, there were a bunch of again of these like very like sort of short-lived communities that were based on different like ideas of like how we should be earning livings and like how we should be practicing religiously, and like I think they're all sort of like forms maybe of like, not all of them, but a lot of them are sort of like, maybe we call it Christian mysticism or something. But see, I don't even know. This is an episode of me talking a lot about things I don't know anything about. You're welcome. So anyway, between those two things, is there a podcast about this? I would love there to be a podcast, because I feel like I just need some sort of like way to get into this information, because it's got to be out there, because it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating. So is there a podcast? Do you know about it? Is that a thing? I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. I'm sorry, Gus. Okay, another thing I'm going to show you that's totally goofy and like ridiculous and much more lighthearted than the rest of the things I've been talking about. Okay, so it's time to like be looking for Christmas countdown calendars and things like that. I was not raised with Christmas countdown calendars, and we are we celebrate Christmas in a very commercial way, like a not a religious way at all. So I will often say Advent calendars, but I shouldn't, because it's not actually the Christian Advent that we're celebrating. We just want chocolate every day. Or in this case, this is brilliant. I'm so excited. I hope it's not terrible. This is a jigsaw Advent calendar. And there are lots of different ones. Like, there are different ones. There's also ones where, like, oh my gosh, the New York Puzzle Company, is that what it's called? The people who do the New Yorker puzzles, they have this like super posh one. It's like a tiny puzzle every day. It's like $200, but it's so fancy. And you could reuse it every year because it's like just like a little 80-piece puzzle that you work every day. And wouldn't that be so delicious? And it's like packaged in a way that you could reuse it. I think if I don't love the puzzles because they're all like New Yorker and they all have the New Yorker written at the top, which I don't love. I get it, but like I've never been a fan of the New Yorker. Not that I'm against it, I have no feelings about it. And they do have another one that's by like sort of an abstract realist artist, but it doesn't appeal to me either. But I'm pretty sure that if they have one that does appeal, I'm going to fall down one year. Anyway, this one is different. This one, you literally get a chunk of the puzzle every day for 24 days. So like on day 1, you might get this corner. And on day 2, you might get like this place down here. It actually does tell you down here if you want to know. And so each day you get a different chunk. Isn't that the cutest thing ever? Now, the bad thing is, it does mean you have to be able to, like, have a space dedicated to this puzzle for the entire month of December. But the good thing is it's just the puzzle. So I am thinking what I'm going to do is just use, like, a piece of, like, we have just, like, random pieces of plywood or whatever, and maybe paint it so it looks a little bit nicer. And maybe put, like, handles on it so it can be easily lifted and also just so it looks pretty. And so that I think I'll just put it on that so that it can be moved around, like if we need the dining room table or if we need the you know, it can be put in different places. So because you don't need room for like all of the pieces, right? Like, so that's the other thing is when you have like a 1,000-piece puzzle, like the puzzle may only take up this space, but you've got like the pieces sorted out or they're in boxes or whatever, like you sort them in boxes, but it takes up a lot more space. Whereas this, you're literally just working on this little chunk every day. Anyway, I did read some reviews where it was like, my puzzle was missing pieces. And I could totally see that would happen because they obviously are not just like putting the whole puzzle into a bag. They have to like take it apart and put it into, and so, but wouldn't it be fun? So I bought it, but I was very excited about it. But also I think next year what I'm going to try to do is make these for, like, wouldn't it be fun to do these as an exchange? It would be super easy too, right? You could just like work out one of your favorite puzzles or like a puzzle that you enjoy. You could work it out and then you could break it up into like little muslin bags and just write numbers on them and then like give it as a countdown to somebody else. Wouldn't it be so stinking cute? Again, you could even do it in like all the fun Advent calendar ways. Like you could do the little muslin bags, the numbered bags. You could like put them on a string. Or you could use like your leftover David's Tea calendar or whatever random Advent calendar that you didn't throw the box away because the box was so nice. I know you have that somewhere. Or you could use like just paper sacks, like whatever. But you could totally do an exchange with friends. Wouldn't that be so cute? Well, maybe a friend. I don't think you want to have like 5 of them going. I don't know, maybe you have that much like real estate, but I don't. It would be so cute, right? Seriously, I love this idea. I'm super jazzed about it. Okay, let's maybe talk about some fibery stuff. So, in knitting, I finished my Stephen West shawl, but I needed to block it still. I put it on my list of things to do, and I just kept forgetting to do it. So I need to weave end ends. It's a block away, as the Gilmore Girls would say. It's really cute, right? I mean, it's really cute. I don't love knitting with that mohair silk by itself, but it does look really great. Right? How fun is that? Bam, bam. So it's super cute. So I'm not going to block it. Like what I do on these is I'll probably just, I just get stuck in it. I'll probably just put it in the sink with some Tufts woolen. And then I will put it on the clothesline or the drying rack or whatever. Usually what I do is just pin the top to it. And then I'll just put a safety pin at the bottom of each scallop to kind of help pull it down. I very rarely block with pins, especially when there's garter involved, because I like the garter to stay squishy and scrunchy. So that's what I'll do. It just gives it that little like ruffly look on the bottom too, which is festive. So there's that. And then I started a new sweater. Well, let me show you socks first. I purchased Must Stash. Had an I'm about to say it, but over the garden wall. See, I was going to say it wrong. Had an over the garden wall DK update. Well, whatever. She had a yarn. So it's a DK Superwash Merino nylon. And I was like, oh, I want some speedy socks. So I just cast on yesterday afternoon. And I am just using, is it the licorice? Whatever. It's like you just slip the stitch I'm doing 3 non-slip stitches between a slip stitch, and I slip those for 2 rows. But anyway, I'm very excited about it. It's very cute. And isn't that yellow fun? And having good snuggly socks is the best. Have you gotten out your socks? I mean, some people wear their socks all year, but I'm usually pretty warm. So it's really been only in the last couple of weeks that I've gotten the socks out and started to wear them every day. There's just not much better than putting on a pair of like perfectly fitting handmade socks. It's just the best. It's the best. It's just so enjoyable. But anyway, so there is that. And it's one of her perfectly matched. So there's 2 balls. I really thought about making a hat with it because I thought, wouldn't it be fun to, since she does the perfectly matched ones, you could use them both together like simultaneously to get a thicker hat stripe. Because lots of times when you use a self-striping fingering weight, you get really super skinny stripes, especially if you have a giant head like me and you like a baggy hat. But if you used the self-striping and you started in the same place on 2 different balls, like theoretically you could do like, okay, I'm going to knit the white strand from this ball A, and when I get to the end, I'm going to knit the white from ball B, right? And like, it would, that's interesting. Because you wouldn't even have to start or stop in the same place, right? Because originally I thought, oh, you would just knit to the end of the round and you would have like a slightly like a transition that was less defined. You would have like a little bit of a woof transition because you'd have like the gray from ball A finishing up, and then you would start the white from ball B. So you'd have like a little bit of a, but like if it's in the round, couldn't you just stop when you got done with your white and then pick up wherever your other white ball is? You could totally do that because then it would just be the same place for each one. So yeah, you could totally do that. And it would still be like a very hard stripe. But making that up, am I wrong? But I think I just thought of it in a second. So, but yeah, because like you would be, like you would stop, say your ball A white stopped here, but your ball, so ball A stopped here. And so you have ball B over here that's ready to start its white. So you could just start here, and then you would be like over here. But then you would pick it up there, so you would still get, because my thought was like, oh wait, you wouldn't get all the, but yeah, you would still, because you would pick it up in the same place each time. I mean, you would pick up the alternating balls in the same place, so there shouldn't be an issue of like, interesting. I know that that's probably wrong, and I'm just like not seeing it in the moment. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that with one of my fingering weight skeins, because I thought about, it just happens to be right here because I've been thinking about it. I thought about doing it with this. This is Mustache Camp Cow Winter 2019, which is Denali National Park, because I might have some of her national park ones, because it's a good way to market to me, quite frankly. So yeah, I'll leave it. And I don't have many hats that are these like bluey or cooler colors. So there's that. Okay, so then the next thing is I started a new garment. I started a sweater vest. Now I really like sleeveless sweaters. I find them to be very wearable just in general because they pill less for me because I don't have like the arm on body friction. I like that quite a bit about them. I also like that I can use a heavier weight sweater, like a worsted weight, or excuse me, a heavier weight yarn, like a worsted weight in the sweater, because like if I did a sweater with long sleeves that is a woolen spun, let's say, because I tend to like woolen spun yarns, they tend to be warmer. If I wear a long sleeve worsted weight sweater, it's probably going to be worn as a coat more than just like as an everyday wear item. So I don't get as much wear out of them. But with a sleeveless thing, I can usually tolerate that pretty easily. It's also a factor that if I do want to knit a worsted spun one, which is a little bit cooler, if I knit a worsted weight long sleeve sweater, it's much more likely to like weigh a lot than a woolen one. So in a sweater vest or a sleeveless sweater, the weight doesn't matter as much because there's less of it because there's no sleeves. But anyway, so I'm wanting to make myself some more sleeveless sweaters or sweater vests. So I decided that I was going to cast on the Voe. It's VOE vest, and it's by MJ Mucklestone. And the bust measurement, I think the finished, let's see, is 61.5 is the largest size. Yes. And it's DK, which again, a DK colorwork sweater would probably be way too hot for me to wear very often at all. But in a vest, I think I can get away with it. And the pattern is written for Jamison's double knitting. So this is the Jamison's double knitting. And this is one of the ones, unlike Jamison and Smith, which you can order like from Woolly Thistle, or you can actually order it directly from Jamison and Smith. You cannot order in the US, you cannot order from Jamison's. They don't ship to us. So unless you have a buddy over there, you have to order it from a US stockist. And it's pretty pricey, to be honest. It's more than I would normally spend. But I had never knit with it, so I wanted to try it out. And it seemed like, again, another nice thing about a sweater vest is that you're not buying as much wool. And so I decided to go ahead and purchase it. I did not use Jamison's for the main color, for the brown, because I had the Fiber Company's Lore, which is also a DK, in a pretty similar brown. It's maybe a little bit lighter, but I still enjoy it. And it has, again, a very kind of woolen spun feel to it, so I thought it would go well. And that saved me a little bit. But so yeah, I think I was drawn to this pattern specifically because of this. It has this sort of like quilty star, right? Doesn't that have like a very quilt feel to it? And I think because normally I would not be drawn to something with that are like sort of almost primary-ish colors, but I think because of that quilt sort of like crossover, that made it even feel like it felt closer to the quilt because of that color choice. So I don't know, even though it's not my normal thing, I really do like it, I think, quite a bit. So yeah, I have this much so far. And this pattern is written with steeks for the neck and for the sleeve openings, which is pretty typical. I actually cast it on quite a while ago, but my gauge was not right. And so because usually I get, I'm kind of spoiled with doing top-down sweaters because you can just kind of estimate like what needle size you think you're going to need. And then kind of like fine-tune your sizing based on the gauge that you get with those. Whereas when you're doing a bottom-up, I cast on for the ribbing and it was like way too big because my gauge was a little bit bigger. So I had to like not only rip it apart, but just think about it for too long. And so it just kind of languished a bit. But I'm back on it now. I think I've got a good size going and I am enjoying the color work. So yeah, I'm like just thinking about it like, yeah, I think I like it. So what else was I going to say? Oh, this is the first time I'm using the Jameson's yarn. I probably would not use it again. I'm not like, I don't dislike it, but I probably would not spend as much as it costs in the US to knit with it again. But we'll see also how it looks after it blocks and all that good stuff. And again, part of the reason is probably just like not particularly drawn to these colors individually, like especially this red. I'm like, so that might be part of the reason that I'm not like super in love with the yarn. But I am enjoying the project as a whole. So yeah. Yay. And I am knitting mine on US 3s. So I think hers is written on for 5s, and that's pretty standard for me. I usually go down 2 needle sizes. My socks, my DK socks, I'm knitting on US 1.5s. I knit fingering weight on 0s, sport weight on 1s, and DK apparently on 1.5s. So yeah, so that's all my knitting. Okay, so then I've been doing a little bit of quilting. I am working on this Sunset Road pattern, and it is written for Woolies, the Woolies line of flannels. This one is, what do they call it? Arg. Desert Sunset, and the other colorway they use is Stormy Seas. So this is the Stormy Seas one. But anyway, I'm making it for my husband because he's always cold. And I have a quilt that is flannel that my mom made me that's flannel front and back and has wool binding. And it's the best. It's super warm, but it's not such a heavy thing that you feel like you're like getting crushed under it. And I just really, really like it. So I'm making this for him, and I am working currently. This one actually uses a bunch of pre-cuts. It uses 2 charm packs, which are like the 5-inch squares, and a jelly roll. And I don't know if you get, this is what, we would think of like as a Jacob's ladder. And so I am currently working on the squares. They all are going to have the contrasting color. The black is like this color throughout. So I have a bunch of them because they're just little half square triangles. I know. Okay, so just like randomness. It says that you're supposed to trim the squares to 4.5 inches, but like my squares are so close to 4.5 inches. So I thought I was going to have to, but before that I thought I was going to trim them so I didn't cut my little dog ears off. But then I ironed them and I'm like, oh wait, these are all 4.5 inches. Like if I trimmed anything, it would be like a 32nd of an inch off of them. And I'm like, that's too much for me. That's too much precision for me. So I still have to go and clip all my little dog ears, but whatever, that's fine. But anyway, so you do that, and then you do, using the jelly roll, you make some square, like some little 4 patchies, and then you sew all together. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. And this is the technique that you use. And again, this is not proprietary. This is like a common technique where you just have 2 5-inch squares, and then you stitch them. If there's a diagonal that you can imagine through the middle, you stitch a scant quarter on each side, and you have your little squares. Hey, this is a question for you. If you've done flannel quilts before, the only other flannel quilt I did, and actually it ended up being Jacob's ladder too. How weird is that? But it like when I washed it the first time, I had lots of places that it frayed. Like I assume my seam allowance was never like tiny, but maybe like in certain places it was, like instead of 1/4 of an inch, it was like 3/16 of an inch, or maybe even 1/8 in places. Do you think I should, if you have experience, if you don't, I love you anyway, but don't tell me how to do this because you'll probably, we'll just be 2 people who don't know what we're doing, like just falling into things. Even though I don't want to do it, because see, I'm going to like lightly quilt this is the other issue. I think if I had like more densely quilted it, but I want it very lightly quilted because I want the warmth. So one of the ways to keep your quilts warmer is to do less quilting on them. So I'm wondering if I should almost like top stitch down my seam allowances. Is that crazy? Would that keep it from doing that? I mean, I think it would keep it from doing that. I don't know. What do you think? So there's that. If you have an idea, I would love to hear it. And then I brought Oh, and then I have a little bit more stitching that I was working on. So I showed you my little salt box houses from, is it the Prairie? Yeah, Plum Street Samplers, excuse me. So these are autumn salt boxes. I'm still working on one of them because I'm not a super fast stitcher, but look how cute it's looking. I've got the little moon. I've got the little smoky chimney. Right? It's looking super cute. The like crazy sunflowers that are also the star quilt pattern. Right? And I think what I'm going to do to frame it, I think what I might do is, just as an experiment, I made some really little hourglass guys, and I think it would be cute to do those around the border. This is the worst demonstration ever. Whatever. I think it would be very cute to use them like as essentially like a matting almost, and then either just do a bias binding like you would for a quilt to like just maybe do it like on a firmer fabric and just use it like as a soft wall hanging instead of an actual framing, because let's face it, framing is like expensive. So I don't know if I do that. I think it would be cute. Right? I got these little tiny, what is it, a mini charm? It's called Adamstown. It's by Joe Morton. Because I thought it kind of looked like it worked with the salt boxes. So I might do that to frame it when I get done. And then, okay, so I think that's all. So then the rest of the show will just be sewing. I don't know why I'm like, you might be interested in cross stitch but not sewing, but I don't know, whatever. The rest will just be sewing. So I've been sewing quite a few garments for myself, or at least trying to. I've had a couple of like, which I won't show you, but like it's just part of sewing, unfortunately. You know, sometimes it's hard to know exactly what size you're going to be wearing, and or just like how a specific cut will work on your body. So I've had a couple of like that I'm still working on. I'm also still working on a Moonette and Broad bralette, the Banksia bralette, which I'm really hopeful about. I've done two kind of samples of it. One in like my size according to my bust. Is that right? I think so. And then that is too small for my bust. Like it fits around very comfortably, but I'm like having boobs spilling out the sideness. So then I read what somebody did was use, that actually what one of the creators recommended is that if you have a larger bust size than the pattern is drafted for, that you use a bigger size for your front of your bra versus the back. So I did that, but I think I went up one size too much. So I'm going to go like, it's like, great. But that one works. I mean, it does at least work, and I can use it, especially like for in the house. It's going to be lovely. But also part of the factor of not knowing is that, of not being completely sure of like, yes, I need to do this size and this technique, is that there are kind of more variables in that specific pattern, because the first one I did, so the pattern is a bralette, but it has this very interesting thing where you're making slings for your boobs. So it's like a sports bra, but inside there's this extra kind of layer that helps keep your breasts separated. Like if you have a lot of breast tissue, it keeps them separated from each other, so you don't have like that boob sweat, and also you don't get like uniboob as much. And there's a couple of different things you can do within that. So there's like two different kinds. Like there's a heavy compression, or like a heavier compression power net, and just a regular power net. So that was a variable that was different between my two samples. And then you also can decide to either line the bra with the power net or line it with itself. So like it was a knit fabric, and I just lined, both just in the same, essentially. Whereas the first one I used the knit for the outside and the power net for the inside. So like I've introduced too many variables to really know for sure what's going on. Like maybe this size would actually, the bigger size would actually work better if it were made in the power net, like with the lining in power net, because that would give it would make it smaller, essentially. Like it would make it less givey. And again, the knit was different. The knit was more of a jersey-ish kind of knit that had spandex versus like an athletic knit. And that's one of those things that, like, again, it has a lot more give, so that might naturally make it less. So I'm unsure. I'm like, should I just make the same size and do it with the other techniques? I don't know. But did I also remember the bags I had for this episode? Did I order some of that pumpkin conglomeration fabric in an athletic knit for my bra? Yes, I did. Because I really want a pumpkin bra really bad. So that's something that I'm like continuing to experiment with, and like hopefully when I get kind of like dialed in more of what really is working, I will talk to you about that. If you're interested, I think it's a great pattern. It really took me a while to get my head wrapped around this whole like boob sling thing and like what was actually going to happen. And so like for some reason I just like put off making it for the longest time because I just wasn't sure, but I think it's going to work out. Okay. But then I also have other sewing. So I'll put in, I'll just put in a couple of clips here of me wearing the stuff that I made. So here are my Aeronite pants by So Liberated and my Tarly t-shirt by Muna and Broad. The fabric in the pants is a sanded cotton, I want to say, and I think it might be from Blackbird Fabrics, but I have to be honest with you, it's been in the stash while and I'm not actually sure. I may just be making that up. But I do want to mention that this is not a fabric that is recommended for this pattern. The Aeronite pants are available in both knit and woven, the same pattern, just one purchase. There's Gus making a little cameo. But the woven version, the recommended fabrics are very drapey. I think it specifically says very or highly or something like that. And this is not a drapey fabric. This is like a woven cotton. And so the reason I mention that is on the pocket, I had to do a little bit of a pleat. Like I pleated it in because my fabric doesn't have any drape to it. So they were very much just like at this angle and it looked a little weird. And as I would walk by any door, it would catch. I have that problem in general. Like I have a pair of Muna and Broad Schoolthorpe pants, which I love and I need to make another pair of. They are, even though the pocket actually sits closer like these do, they do catch on door knobs, especially in my house. I'm sure it depends on the height of you versus the height of your doorknob. But but now that I put this little pleat in, it's much easier to walk by doors without being attacked. And also again, they don't stick out at such a severe angle. So that's the only modification I made to these pants. I made the size that corresponds to my hip size, and I didn't have to make any changes. I like them to sit high. I have a B belly, so I have like the 2-part belly, and I don't know, I feel like if they're comfortable up here. It's less important with an elastic waist, but like if it's a woven, like a firm waistband, I especially like them to sit up here. And I think I have found out that that's the reason is you can actually measure. I didn't know this until very recently. You can do your measurements both standing and seating. I mean, I guess I knew that, but I didn't know why you would do that. And it's just to determine the amount of ease that you'll need in your garment. So it's especially important in pants, or like if you have like a button-up blouse that's like, again, a woven that doesn't have any give or anything to it. And so if I measure if I measure my waist like here, let's just say it's here. This is like the middle of my B belly. This is like what I would normally consider my waist. If I measure this standing versus sitting, there's a greater difference in those two measurements than there is here. So I think that's why, like with woven, for my particular body, I mean, I think it happens for lots of different bodies that are similar to mine. But it's also very important, I have now found, if you are making a fitted pant, I've done a recent test sew for a pair of fitted pants that by my standing hip measurement worked just fine if I was standing in them. But when I went to sit in them, they got much snugger. To the point where it's actually uncomfortable. So I would actually need to, but if I looked at my seated hip measurement versus my standing hip measurement, I would have made the correct size, or the size that fits me for actually sitting and standing versus just standing. So anyway, I thought that was very interesting. Okay, so then my t-shirt is the Tarly t-shirt by Muna and Broad. The only modification I made is to make the sleeve an inch longer. And that is something I need. Like all of my ready-to-wear t-shirts, if they're a women's t-shirt, are too short in the sleeves. Like I am 5'7", but I am longer waisted. So I think that means my arms are proportionately longer maybe. But either way. So like you would just know probably. But that's the only modification I made. I just made the straight size that would fit my bust. And then this fabric is a bamboo jersey knit in the penny colorway from Blackbird Fabrics. And it's 95% rayon from bamboo, 5% spandex. So there is that. Oh, and so one of the features that's interesting about the Charlie t-shirt is that it has this center back seam, which is curved. So it gives you like a nice, like kind of more fitted look. And you can see like it doesn't have that like kind of tinting effect that lots of like regular t-shirts have, well, especially on me anyway. Part of it is this fabric is sort of drapey. But part of it is that curved seam that goes up through the middle. So it's not just a straight seam, it's actually got a curve to it. And it gives it a nice, slightly more fitted profile without being like snug. Obviously, if you wanted it to be more form-fitting, you could just size down. But again, it kind of like helps with like the boxiness of a t-shirt sometimes. So there's that. Okay, so then this is outfit. Well, this is not outfit, but like here are pieces 3 and 4 that I finished. So again, this is another Charlie t-shirt by Muna and Broad. Same thing, made the sleeves an inch longer. This is a cotton modal jersey from Blackbird. It's paprika, and it's 57.5% cotton, 37.5% modal, and 5% spandex. It's a little bit, well, I was gonna say it's a little bit more cottony than that's because the other one didn't have any cotton in it. But it's definitely like a little bit thicker, like less drapey than the other. And the difference too, I think, is that I did not use the serger on this one. I used just my regular machine. And so I think that between the fabric being a little thicker and between using my regular machine, I think this back seam looks a little bit better. But I mean, is that me? Is it the fabric? Is it the sewing technique? Too many variables. But just like, there you go. There's some information that may not be helpful. And now let's talk about these ridiculous pants. Okay, and then let's talk about these pants. Are you ready for these pants? Are you ready for them? I actually used, okay, so let's talk about the fabric first. Do you see how crazy it is? This fabric is a grid fleece from, I think it's called Power Air. I could be wrong about that, but it's from Mill Yardage. It's very clear. Like if you look at they have like 3 categories. One of them is base layers, one of them is insulation, and then one of them is like outerwear or like wind protect, whatever. It's the middle one. And there's 2 sizes of grid fleece. This is the larger one, or of this like gridded stretchy stuff. And it is stretchy. Like lots of times fleeces, I would not normally think of it as a fleece because it doesn't have that like, how do we describe the feeling of polar fleece? Like that porous kind of feel to it. It's slicker than that. It has like a slickery feel, but yet it's not, it has a little bit of shine, but it's not like as shiny as like a lot of athletic wear. So it's not matte like a polar fleece, but it has much less shine than like spandex athletic leggings or something. But I love it. I mean, like, I love the color of it so much, obviously. But also, it's just enjoyable. I needed some house pants for when I'm working. I have, like, I've had to retire some of my, like, long time house pants. They just, like, went over the hill. So I needed something that would not pill and that would not grab threads, because I'm sewing all the time. I'm constantly battling having thread stuck to me. And like, there's just something about how it like interrupts my visual flow that like kind of weirds me out. I know, it's dumb. It's just a me thing. If you had thread on your pants, I would not even notice, I'm sure. But, so I needed something that had like a surface that's not going to like pick up everything. The threads will still stick to this, like if you like, but they won't like resist you removing them, I guess is the way to say it. So yeah, I think I might think I might need another pair. Oh, I don't know, I can't decide. So the pattern is actually a style arc pattern, but I'm not going to recommend it because I just can't, I just should not sew style arc patterns. Like, I'm not an advanced enough sewist to really make them work well for me. This was a knit. I wanted to get a knit because it's stretchy, right? Like sometimes, oh, that's the other thing. Polar fleece, lots of times it's not stretchy. This is actually quite stretchy. And it's just two-way. No, it has a little bit. It's mostly two-way. So I bought this style arc pattern, but it had inseam pockets, and I just don't like inseam pockets. I like them like in theory, but they never look good. Now, obviously this is, well, not obviously, maybe, but it is a slightly bulkier fabric, but I even used a woven for the interior pocket bags for the inseam pockets, and it still was a hot mess. So part of that could be just like my inexperience with like sewing knit pants, I guess, but like the style arc patterns are not there to help you. They are just there to like provide a template for you to like start from, I think. And so that was not a good choice. So what I ended up doing is kind of like after the fact, using my glebe pants and going in and doing the pocket from those, which is a Muna and Broad. And really this, I actually held up the things, and this basically is a glebe pant with like just a slightly less wide leg opening. And actually, now that I think about it, it's probably actually just straight legged. It's just like has a teensiest bit of tape, like a teensy bit. Whereas the glebe is perfectly straight leg. And the reason it probably looks less, the glebe pants has a pretty wide look to the leg. But I also have to remember that I have negative ease in the body of this, whereas with a regular woven I would not. So that might be why the leg looks significantly narrower to me. So basically what I'm saying is, if I were going to make these pants again, or use this fabric to make a similar pant, I would just use the glebe pants and then like give myself negative ease in the hip measurement. And just a smidge of negative ease in the hip measurement and just go with that. That's what I would do. Okay? Because again, I have this very high rise, which is like so comfy and cuddly in the winter. I don't know, it just makes me feel more snuggly. I dig it. So yeah, so they're very fun and ridiculous. But the teen said I could wear them outside of the house. So, I mean, although the teen is literally in clown costume today. So I don't know, maybe they can't be trusted. But anyway, I could wear them outside the house. I would just like not wear them to like somewhere I was trying to be confident and cool. I would just wear them like to the grocery store or something. But generally, I really like them. I have worn and washed them a couple of times. Oh, I've worn them like a dozen times now, and I've washed them twice, I want to say. So that's another nice thing about them. They don't need to be washed like every time. Well, I mean, I never wash, well, unless I drop something on them. But, you know, I don't typically wash my pants every time. And the fact that they have this like weird gridded thing is actually an attempt to limit the amount of microfiber shed that fleece has a problem with. So that's the other reason that I try not to wash them, is just because like it is not a natural fabric. But hopefully that grid sort of, because what it is basically is like the fleeciness is trapped between these two like silky layers, the outside and the inside. Because the inside is also, well, I can't show you. I'll show you like after this is over. The outside is also sort of like slickery. Which makes them great if you are wearing them as pants or what have you. Like if you need to wear like a base layer with them, they're not going to like grab and stick to it. So that's another good positive. Especially like I also think I have enough of this to make like a hoodie kind of jacket or like a stand-up collar zip jacket. And so that'll be another nice thing, like when you're putting the jacket on, it hopefully won't like grab your sleeves as much as fleece. It's like a regular fleece would. So yeah. Ta-da! Okay, so then one thing I was going to show you is that the other side of that strange quote-unquote fleece fabric, this is what, like, you can see kind of hopefully with a little bit of sheen, and it's very smooth. kind of like what a yoga knit would, maybe not yoga, but maybe like an athletic, like, because it also has wicking property, so maybe that's why it has that kind of sheen to it. A lot of those like wicking, dry wick or whatever fabrics have that kind of sheen. So that's what it looks like. And so then, since most of the things I showed you were knit, you might be questioning like how I sewed them, or like, I actually kind of prefer to sew knits on not a serger. I love using a serger to, on wovens to keep clothing from fraying. Like, I think that's like that's, for me, I like the serger for that the most. But some people have like an overlocking foot on their just home machine, and that's a very nice alternative. I know that Juki has one. I'm sure that other sewing machine manufacturers make this well. And it's basically a foot that kind of has like a part of what a serger does is it has kind of like this little bar that the stitches are formed around. Like it creates like a rigid structure for the stitches to be formed around. And so it kind of almost, the foot, the overlocking foot almost has like kind of like a baby version of that. And so, but it also usually has kind of like a barrier so that you're pushing your fabric up against that and guiding it along this foot that's creating, or this kind of like rigid piece that the stitches are being formed around. And so it creates something that's very similar to an overlocked edge that you would get from a serger. It obviously doesn't do all the things a serger does. Like sergers would have differential feeds and like lots of other factors, but it's certainly a good alternative. That was a lot of me talking. But for knits, I think maybe it's because of my like ability level, like my that I'm still kind of new at sewing knits, that maybe that's why I don't like to sew them on the serger as much. But I feel like they're much more likely to get wavy, or maybe it's just like it's stressful because like once you do them on the serger, it's trimming fabric off, and so you're like, like on a neckline or something, it's much more stressful to do it on the serger than it is to do it on the sewing machine. But I actually kind of prefer to sew knits just on my home machine. And you can either use a zigzag stitch, or what I actually prefer to use is, I think it's called a lightning stitch. And it's kind of like a zigzag, but it's more of like vertically oriented. I like that one a lot. And you can use it for hemming, you can use it for sewing. But because knits don't ravel, you need the stretchiness that a serger provides, but you don't have to have the like protection from fraying that a serger provides. So I really do like, it's a pain in the neck to rip out a lightning stitch. It's just usually really tiny, but I still like it better than the overlocker. Again, it's probably just something to do with my experience level. But like, it's a lot easier for me to like, when you're putting in a neckline, you're kind of stretching the neckline more than you're stretching the body of your shirt. And like, that's just easier for me to manage, I think, on a regular sewing machine. But that's all just to say, if you're interested in sewing knits, like, and you have a regular home sewing machine, you do not need a serger, is what I'm trying to say. You don't need a serger to sew. Again, sergers are a relatively new invention. I am interested now that I say that. I'm like, well, historical garments, what do they do? I mean, sure, it's like anything, there's lots of variation, but is like French seaming like the most, is that what you see most on historical garments? Actually, look, that's another rabbit hole to go down. But anyways, that was to say that like sergers are relatively new, especially for home use, are relatively new, so you do not need one. But it is convenient, don't get me wrong. I have one and I enjoy it. But it's like another thing to have to get out. But, maybe if I have a basement that's waterproof, I could have it down the air outs. Gus needs a haircut. His groomer was sick, though. So he's especially shaggy right now. But he also is very cute. Annie is so pretty when she's shaggy. The groomer was like, the office called. I was like, she's going to be out. We'll call her reschedule. I was like, well, that's fine. And I'm secretly like, I mean, it's not good for them because especially he gets mats like behind his ears and his tail is a mess. His tail gets so matted. I know, I'm a bad dog owner. I'm really a bad dog owner. But Annie especially is so pretty. I'm like, oh, she doesn't need a haircut. She's so beautiful. But anyway, that was just a random digression. Anyway, I hope you were enjoying your October. If you're not, I hope your November is better. And I'll talk to you soon.